Hello, I'm Marites Vitug. Welcome to Rappler Talk Investigative. Joining us now is a very outspoken critic of President Duterte and a rising star, perhaps, in Congress, Gary Alejano. This is his second term as a member of the Congress, and he represents the party list Magdalo. And we've invited him here at Rappler today mainly to talk about the communication or complaint he and his colleague Senator Trillanes filed with the International Criminal Court. Thank you very much, Congressman Gary, for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am, for having me in your program.
Yes, and we hope you're enjoying Rappler's coffee.
Yes, ma'am, finally.
So, of course, in the past week or so, the ICC prosecutor already has announced that she's conducting a preliminary examination. And is there a reason for us, for you, or for the Filipinos who don't like Duterte, to be elated at this point?
Well, it's a welcome development for the country, especially for those families or members have been victims of this war on drugs, and for those who are seeking justice. It's a welcome development in spite of the fact that the ICC has its own internal processes. We know that, and they have different experiences and the information given to them. Again, it's a welcome development because of so many thousands of communications that have been transmitted to the ICC. Only few reach the point of preliminary examination.
So not all communications are acted upon?
Yes.
Okay, just to make it clear, because I read somewhere, a Filipino lawyer wrote that they act on all communications. So it's not true. Okay.
Well, it depends on how to act, because
you reject.
Yes,
they have rejected.
Yes, rejection is also one act.
Yeah.
So this is a formal recognition of ICC on the information that we have submitted. This is a formal process.
Yes.
This is the first step, wherein they're going to look on the information that we have gathered and from the open sources, and to determine whether there is a reasonable basis to proceed to the next stage, which is the preliminary investigation.
During this preliminary examination, does the ICC prosecutor have to visit the Philippines, or does she have to send maybe her office, people from her office, to conduct an investigation here in the Philippines?
No. At this point, no witnesses will be called, no documents will be required. In fact, we're informed that no information are required from us, more information. So that means they have collected the information, and based on what we have submitted to them, and from sources, open sources from international organizations like media, like the Human Rights Watch, United Nations, and from those information, they're going to weigh things.
I see. So they're not requiring you to provide additional information?
However, we have the option to continue providing them information, like the events that took place after we filed the communication.
You filed it in June
of 2017. Yes.
So are you going to provide them additional information?
Yes. From the available information we have since June of 2017, we have the option to submit those information to them. Like example, the spot reports that we have gathered from the Philippine National Police, and even the list of those who were killed after June 2017.
So these spot reports, I think you're the only one who has these copies of these spot reports given by the Philippine National Police. How were you able to get this when the Supreme Court requested these same spot reports and other reports? And even the IBP also wrote certain police offices, and they have not gotten any response. Maybe can you tell us more about what you have?
Actually, the spot reports are public document. It should be provided to concerned investigating bodies, like the Supreme Court, like the Senate, and not like the House of Representatives. So during one of the public hearings in the Committee of Public Order and Safety, specifically tackling the apparent breakdown of discipline within the Philippine National Police, I requested from the representatives of the Philippine National Police to provide the committee, through my motion, spot reports of the Philippine National Police that operations that resulted to death. So at that time, they reported that around 3,900 plus drug suspects have been killed. Out of the police operations. So I requested for the spot reports that covered those operations. And they did submit a report, but only 26% or 1,005 spot reports.
So you have 1,500 spot reports.
Yes.
Why did they not give you the rest? What was their excuse or the official reason?
No reason or reasons were given to me. Actually, I have already communicated to the Philippine National Police to provide us the remaining spot reports. And I have studied the spot reports, made some analysis there based on the spot reports, assuming that the contents of the spot reports are correct.
Okay.
Because, spot reports are just pro forma, and they just fill in the information needed out of that operation.
So can you share with us your analysis of the 1,500 spot reports?
So those from the spot reports, it shows there that the operations came from, the spot reports were conducted on different regions. The majority of the reports came from Region 3 and Region 4. As I've said earlier, it's not complete, only 26%. NCR did not submit much. So based on the available Region 3 and Region 4 submitted the bulk of the reports. Then as to the time the operations were conducted, a majority of the operations happened during nighttime, from 6 in the evening to 12, and then 12 midnight towards 6 in the morning. So I did not invent it. I just tallied it.
Okay.
And then majority of those who were killed are males. And then recovered from them are 1 to 6 sachets of shabu.
1 to 6 sachets per person?
Per person. That means they recovered different numbers of sachets from those who were killed, but the majority of them have 1 to 6 sachets. And the weapons that were used, I also broke that down, and majority used 38 caliber pistol. And I tried to find out whether they have serial numbers, because they're distinct by serial numbers. And majority of them have defaced serial numbers.
Which means?
Which means they don't have serial numbers. So if they don't have serial numbers, they can be used over and over again. And that's one question I asked also to the Philippine National Police. In the event that we will request for ocular inspections of those firearms recovered, would they be able to present to us? They said yes, but they're not centralized. Well, I hope that they will be able to do that in the future should we ask for that ocular inspection. And of course, the number of deaths resulting to operation also happen at night. At night. And I emphasized there after the analysis that the Philippine National Police should address, should look on the experiences they have before and improve their operations or the war on drugs, especially the supply side. Because if they are not hard on, example, the drugs coming into the country, like the BOC mess, the 604 kilograms entered into our customs. I did not hear the president got mad or berserk because of that
But
drugs.
here, these people who were killed only had 1 to 6
Yes.
sachets per person, apparently.
If you have to convert the 604 kilograms of shabu that entered into our customs, it will equate to more or less 2.3 million sachets. So that means if you are willing to kill one person having 1 to 6 sachets of shabu, why are you not mad at the one responsible of importing drugs to the country?
When you submit this 1,500 spot reports to ICC, including your analysis,
Yes.
what value will it add to your complaint which you filed in 2017?
But it only shows that they indeed conducted operations. There were official, legitimate operations against drug suspects. And it really happened.
And there was no, what, don't the police officers file cases? Did they file cases against these people they later killed? No cases filed at all. They were just
Well,
killed.
I think for those who were killed, I don't think they will file case anymore.
No, I mean, before that, in the spot report, it doesn't show
It doesn't show
that there were cases filed
against them.
them.
Yes. In fact, aside from the almost 4,000 deaths out of police operations, they also have around, at the time, 9,000, now 16,000 deaths under investigation. Because, you can see the trend there on the first month of President Duterte.
In
the
July-
number,
July
of
2016.
2016,
Okay.
the numbers are really high. And it started to go down. Because at that time, I remember, there was this public pressure and international pressure on the war on drugs. And after some time, there's a shift. And you can see now vigilante killings. Because the police, when you conduct operations, you have your face, you have your uniform, and you're required to submit reports. But in vigilante killings, it's forgotten. No faces, no personalities, no reports that will be made. So nagbago ang trend. Sabihin na lang nila, it's homicide case under
Yes.
investigation.
So, mabalik tayo dun sa pag-file nyo sa ICC. No? So you you have lawyers who briefed you, because why did you consider going to the ICC in the first place?
Well, we understand, ma'am, that the ICC is the court of last resort.
Yes.
It should not be resorted to if the present justice system is working in the country. So why we resorted to ICC? Because at the start of the term of the president, he started, in every occasion, almost every occasion, he told the public that he's going to kill those involved in drugs. In almost even in front of children, they said that they're going to, even in front of the parents in OFWs. In order for you not to be, affected, it's not painful for you, you kill your children yourselves so that it will not be painful. And he even said, don't go out on the streets, because if you're not, if you will not fall to the hands of the police in the next 5 years or 6 years of my term, definitely you will be, arrested or killed. So in all those public pronouncements, you can see this public policy, a policy of encouraging, condoning, inciting, instigating not only the police and the military, but the whole population to kill drug suspects. They're suspects.
Yeah.
And then, aside from the public policy or state policy of killings, he changed the definition of human rights, because he forwarded to the public that those who are using drugs will have an effect to them in their brains. Their brains will start to shrink. And the moment their brains shrink, they lose the capacity to think. And therefore, they should not be afforded human rights, and they are not part of the humanity. Therefore, they have to be eliminated. They don't have the chance to change anymore. And then he also forwarded to the public, creating a sense of emergency or urgency by bloating the numbers. He even fired the former chairman of the Dangerous Drugs Board, because the chairman said that only around 1.8 million drug users in the country. But the president said, no, it's 4 to 5 million. Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano even said it might be 7 million. But the point is, you have to have a baseline before you conduct operation or come up with a program or a strategy. in order for you to have a metrics of accomplishment.
Yes.
So if you deceive the people, and the people are pushed to the wall, and they will agree to you, yes, I agree with you, Mr. President. So out of that 1.8 million drug users in the country, less than 10% are heavy users. In fact, majority of them are occasional users. And therefore, they are not automatic drug addicts. And they're not automatic criminals for them to go out on the streets and kill people and rape people. That's not the case. It's unfair to paint them as somebody like zombie walking on the streets that deserves to be killed. So with those information, the next day, and after that pronouncements, people have been killed on the streets. They are not coincidence. They are not accidents. It was a result or consequences of this policy direction of the president. Even if he will say, I just encourage them, I just threaten them, but the fact that people are being killed on the streets, it is a result or a consequences of his policy. Now, how can we help these victims? Do you think they can go to the Philippine National Police? I don't think so. They're afraid. Do you expect them to file cases before the courts? They don't have the money. There are poor people there in the slums. They cannot afford even to bury their dead. They don't even attend the ceremony there because they're afraid. So they're afraid. And can you go to the Department of Justice? You have the secretary saying there's no extrajudicial killing. Those are legitimate operations. Even if you have 16,000 plus death under investigation, what's the result of the investigation? Merong riding on tandem, vigilante killing. Kahit malapit doon sa stasyon ng pulis, walang nahuli. 16,000 na po yung napatay dyan. So ang point natin dito, ma'am, we tried to go through institutional processes by filing resolutions to investigate the apparent, widespread killings. And fortunately, the Senate conducted its hearing on extrajudicial killing, only to cover the tracks of the president. They did not give the chance to the families of the victims to air their side. So, nagiging committee de obsuelto. In the House, we did not have that hearing. So, for me, since the president is immune to cases, you cannot file a case before the RTC because he's immune.
He can only be removed through impeachment, which
Yes,
you did, which you
yes.
led in the House.
So I filed impeachment complaint against the president because once his immunity is removed, then we can file a case against him. But again, in the House of Representatives, he has the supermajority, and they just trash it away without giving the chance, a benefit of the doubt.
So before you went to the ICC, you consulted lawyers who guided you, and
Yes.
how do you go about filing communication?
Yes.
So you did. You have your own set of lawyers.
Yes.
And you did not. I mean, you said earlier. I mean, before we started the interview, that you never met Attorney Jude Sabio,
Yes,
who was
yeah.
the first. I mean, to file the major complaint.
Yes. So I do not know Attorney Sabio before, and he volunteered to file the case. He was endorsed to us. So he filed the communication to The Hague, and months after, we supplemented the information together with Senator Trillanes. And we believe that we need an institution that is free from threats, that is independent enough to look into the case of extrajudicial killings in the country. Because right now in the country, there's an imbalance already of powers. And the powers start to concentrate to the executive department. Don't expect judiciary to render decisions against the president. And remember, when you file a case against this magnitude, it should be against the most guilty of the most crime. Not only to two police officers, to the most guilty. So do you think you can have a meaningful and genuine investigations and prosecution against the president here in the country? I don't think so.
So you were saying earlier, it's the ICC is the court of last resort.
Yes, sure.
So it was timely that in June 2017 you supplemented Sabio's complaint.
Yes, ma'am.
After this preliminary examination, it may take time, it may
Yes,
take
ma'am.
years. Now, if the next step, if it's indeed decided that ICC will proceed to the next step,
Next step.
is that it's called investigation?
Investigation.
That's when they would need witnesses
Yes,
to
ma'am.
come out and speak and
Yes,
give affidavits.
And,
yeah?
yes, and request the respondents to answer. But before going to the investigation, there are criteria that should be met by the prosecutor in order to proceed to preliminary investigation. First, whether the ICC has jurisdiction
Yes.
over the case. So it's under it, under the jurisdiction you have temporal, whether we acceded to the Rome Statute,
Which we did.
which we did in
Okay.
2011. The Rome Statute took effect July of 2002. And second, whether the case that we allege there is present in the materiality. The crime is crime against humanity. Is one
Humanity,
of
yes.
the crimes enumerated
Yes.
in the Rome Statute. You have genocide, crime against humanity, crime of aggression, and war crimes. And then whether the crime or crimes were committed in the territory or by the national of the state that acceded to the Rome Statute, and it complied with the jurisdiction. And the next one is very crucial, the admissibility, because the Malacanang is saying that we have been doing our part here in the country. I think the ICC should not step in. First, under admissibility is complementarity. ICC will just complement our judicial system. It is not designed to take over the justice system of the country. But again, we've resorted to, the last attempt is to file impeachment against the president in order to hold accountable the president. And it did not work. And whether it is grave as to the scale, number, nature, yes, thousands have been killed already. And lastly, will it be to the interest of justice for the ICC to intervene? I think so. So after they have determined out of that criteria for them to proceed to the next level, then they will open preliminary investigation. And even at that early stage, they can already request the pre-trial chamber to issue warrant of arrest.
Even while they're just starting to conduct the investigation
Yes.
itself. Okay.
Because it is like finding probable cause.
Yes. But our problem here in the Philippines, as you know, is that
Yeah.
the government agencies will not cooperate.
Yes, I
Probably
think
it's
so.
only the Commission on Human Rights.
Yes, the
which-
Commission on Human Rights.
How will that help maybe obstruct the case then? If they don't get data from the Philippine National Police, you only have 1,500
Yes.
spot reports.
Well-
Where will they get other sources of information?
Well, I hope that the Duterte administration will show to the world, to the ICC, that they are not guilty of the alleged crime by cooperating with the ICC to prove that they are not involved. Now, with the experience so far, like in the Supreme Court, the Solicitor General doesn't want to provide spot reports to the Supreme Court. So aside from the information we have, the ICC can enlist the support of the Commission on Human Rights, the local non-government organizations that have been documenting the killings in the communities. Even the church have their own system of monitoring this. I believe some legal organizations or legal groups, they have been documenting this, and I hope those would be helpful.
Who will put this all together? All the disparate efforts, NGOs, the Commission on Human
Yes, yes,
Rights, you have your own information gathering.
Well,
Should it be the CHR or?
Yeah, CHR is just one,
Yes.
of the sources. I think the rationale also of the Tindig Pilipinas, why we came together, coming from different organizations, is to have a united efforts against extrajudicial killing and all the activities that are detrimental to the democracy of this country. The organization can very well help the ICC in the future.
It's also possible that the investigation will go on even beyond Duterte's term.
Yes.
So
they
it's-
have their own processes there,
Exactly, yeah.
and based on the experiences also of other countries, some of the cases have gone so many years without conclusion. So, but for us, we believe that we have a strong case, and the ICC is also trying to improve its performance because they were criticized of their performance, and as long as the case is moving on, it's really a welcome to the Filipino people.
Do you think that the preliminary examination of the ICC is a pressure on the Duterte government or on the government itself or on the president himself to slow down?
Yes.
Do you think it's because he doesn't seem to care?
Well, that's his public pronouncements. That is just his public image. But the reality is, it's a pressure, really. And I don't think the case doesn't matter to Malacanang. It matters. Because even beyond the term of the president, and even those primarily responsible for the extrajudicial killing, they would be made responsible or liable in the future, even beyond their stint in government. So they're concerned about it because they don't have control over ICC. Not like here in the Philippines, they can always threaten the Supreme Court, the Ombudsman, the Commission on Human Rights. They can always do that, but not with ICC.
Maybe let's shift to an interesting subject because you were among the leaders of 2 mutinies, right, against President Arroyo.
Protest.
Okay, you led 2 protests / mutiny. Anyway, my question is, at that time, you did not use institutions to vent your grievances. You walked out of the military. You protested. But now you're part of Congress, you're going through institutions. You filed the impeachment complaint, you went to the ICC, you filed resolutions with the House for more transparent. You're doing it all through institutions.
Yes.
What changed?
We have different situations.
Okay.
So before we were soldiers, and the only thing we know how to protest is through, going out in the public and informing the people what's happening in the country. But we did not fire a single shot. We did not kill anybody or destroy properties. That's our way of, expressing our grievances against the government. But right now we are situated in a different situation. We want to uphold democracy. We want to strengthen democratic institutions. We want to strengthen democratic processes because it will provide stability in the long run. Because if we will resort to extrajudicial means, it will further erode the already, endangered democracy in the country. So I do not encourage young officers to do that because we're also saying to them that we are here, you can already relate to us things which are not addressed in the organization, and maybe we can intervene in a legal and proper way in order to address the problems. But I just would like to state that even before I was asked, before the Oakwood and Manalapan incidents, I was asked when I was still cadet whether I will join future uprisings in the country. I told the media that it will not happen. I will not join. But later I found myself joining 2 uprisings. So that means that as long as there are issues in the armed forces that are not addressed, uprisings could still happen.
So you're not discounting at this stage in our democracy, in our endangered democracy. Uh, is the time for coups, mutinies, protests by the military over?
Well,
But you say you're not discounting.
I'm not discounting it. That is why I am calling on the Department of National Defense and even the executive department, like in the issue of the frigate. We should address the problem by favoring or looking into the issues of the Philippine Navy. They have been working on it, and at the end of the day, the interest of the contractor won over their interest. So I was saying we should look at the national interest of the country, because the Navy will be the ones using the ship, and they know the mission critical equipment there, not the contractor, because the contractor is interested in the business, in the profit that they're going to make out of the project. So now, because of this controversy, junior officers are placed in a situation, in a dilemma, wherein they're just saying, damn if you do and damn if you don't.
You're referring to the Navy because that's
Yeah.
you're in touch with your classmates and.
That's the only one of the issues actually. But there are so many modernization projects in the armed forces, in the Army, in the Air Force. And if we will not address the issue right now with the frigate acquisition project, it could happen to the different projects in the armed forces. So I'm just saying that allow them to express their grievances. You listen to them. Don't muzzle them. The moment you do that, time will come that they will come to a boiling point.
That's very interesting because as we speak, this is the cause of Rappler's trouble in covering the president, because one of our reporters wrote about the intervention of Malacanang. So you're saying that this has caused also disenchantment in the Navy, because instead of looking at the national interest, you said the civilian politicians are interfering.
Yes.
So there is disenchantment in the Navy?
I cannot speak for them, but on my own perspective, in my own opinion, I believe it will create demoralization in the ranks. I even received information like that. I would like to remind Malacanang that they are occupants of Malacanang for only 6 years. They should remember that the officers of the armed forces have been serving the armed forces for so many years. Some of them 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, in a dedicated manner. They risk their lives serving this country. Don't destroy their service by, in just a whim, by favoring contractors, because the armed forces or the officers do not live by the salaries alone, by the promotions alone. They are there to serve the country. They are there to serve the people. So they should listen to them.
You spoke publicly about this Navy frigate acquisition deal.
Yeah.
As you said, you gave a privileged speech. You showed the documents. Did you hear any feedback from Malacanang? Did they threaten you or did they ban you?
They did not. What I expect from them is for them to look into the issue, address it, not cover the tracks. When the information or when I delivered privilege speech, the first thing they did is to clear Bongo one day. One day, overnight investigation declared Bongo the next day. I would have wanted the president to state to the public that he's going to investigate and definitely is going to favor the welfare of the Navy, not protect Bongo right away. It's very evident during the Senate investigation.
So the status now, it's status quo now.
Yes.
So there's no improvement since the Senate hearing. There's
Well,
no change.
Yes, I do not oppose the modernization project, the frigate acquisition project. I want it to be consummated, but not that uh, proceeding with it while it is disadvantageous to the Philippine Navy
Yes.
by the selection of the systems, because that will be used as the basis of the future projects of the Navy. So that means you have to address it now. So they said that the Navy can always reject that in the future. The moment the Koreans deliver it to the country and they said it is not compliant to the technical specifications of the Navy, they can always reject that. But again, it's too late. It would be too late already.
Among others also, you've spoken out loud on, in fact, you've sort of warned the public about Chinese intrusion
Yes,
in the
yes.
West Philippine Sea. You seem to be always updated. So, and among your advocacies, you've you've gone to the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
You've spoken out against the intervention of politicians or of the executive in the Navy frigate deal. You've spoken out against China's incursion in the
Yes.
West Philippine Sea. Among your advocacies, what is your most pressing priority as a legislator?
Well, right now, the Magdalo Party List pursues advocacies in the security sector. We're pursuing security sector reform. That's basically our advocacy, and good governance. We're just pursuing what we have started in Oakwood. It's precisely the reason why we're here. We're not really politicians. We're accidental politicians. We went through big debate whether to join politics or not. And that's the reason why we're so affected by the issues affecting the armed forces. Now, what's the pressing issue right now? I believe that our democracy is under threat. And that is why we need to fight for it. We need to inform the people that we're now sliding back to dictatorship. The people should know, in spite most of them have not experienced the martial law during the Marcos time. We should appreciate history, and we should not repeat history. So right now, press freedom is under attack. Check and balance system is being eroded. Democratic institutions are also under attack, and even the president changed the definition of human rights. So that's the first thing that we should really address, because the moment we slide back to dictatorship, everything will be gone.
Thank you very much, Congressman Gary Alejano, on
Thank
that note, foreboding note, and on your analysis that you cannot discount maybe a protest from the military at this point. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Also for reminding our viewers that we have to fight for our democracy.
Yeah.
Not only, the media has its own battle,
Yes.
but at the same time, the killings, as you said,
Yes.
and the changing of the definition of human rights
Yes.
has really led us into new territory.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you,
we
ma'am.
hope to hear from you again. Thank you very much to our readers and our viewers. Please, we will keep this interview live on the Rappler website. Thank you.